call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. I'll introduce the panel members first. Kent Seelan to my left, Richard Whitbread to my far left. Our assessor today will be Jonathan Spazek. Our administrative assistant today will be Huna Aziz, and I'm Marcel Larondo, I'll be chairing. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment role in accordance with the Municipal Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussions to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matter must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decision with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to an application of exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with your board order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by the questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. I'd ask for everybody to put their cell phones on silent, please. Swear them in. Thanks, Aziz.
Please state your full name.
Jonathan Fitzpatrick.
And you swear the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I swear.
Thank you. Please state your full name.
Marcel Navarro.
And you swear the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
First property on the docket today will be 235 Marion and its amount of assessed value. Jonathan, when you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're looking at roll number 0607501500. This is 235 Marion Street. You can see exactly where this is located on Marion. On my page 2, I have an aerial view. It's Marion and Traverse Avenue. 2020 value of $641,000. We're looking at a one-story bank built in 1960 with an effective year of 1975. The updated effective year is due to some permits taken in 2012. They did 250,000 in interior alterations, and we have a updated effective year of 1975. We have a gross floor area of 4,482 with a leasable area of 2,241. So we have a very small spaced bank. You can see the narrow lot on page 2 as well, and you can see the pictures, street view pictures on the bottom of page 2, and the small amount of parking on this lot on page 3 as well. Again, we received their income and expense mailer in 2017, and page 5 is the income workup for this property. We have 2,241 square feet at our bank classification. This works out a model generated rent of $17.13. We have vacancy loss of 2%, we have expenses as 2%, shortfall 8%, and an overall capitalization rate of 5.7%. This is this creates our total value of $641,000. If you turn to page 6, I have put together a kind of a global list of bank rents for today, as all of our properties today are banks, but the ones that stick out for me as most comparable using actual years built. So comparable one was built in 1980. It's a 9,000 square foot bank with at $18 a square foot. If you look at comparable number 5 at 230 Portage, it's an older bank, 1985, with $15 a square foot rent. And if you look at comparable 9, we have 739 Henderson, built in 1950, 4,000 square feet at $14.89. So you'll see there is a wide range of rents across all. Newer built tends to drive a higher rent. There seems to be a relationship there. But if you're looking at an older bank like this, that closer to that $17 rent is fair in my opinion. Turn to page 7, it's just our income value summary again, same thing as on the other pages, we only have one income stream. Page 8 is our capitalization rate sheets. You'll see there's not a separate capitalization rate for banks. There's definitely not enough sales, and there's not a market of its own to create its own row. But you know, the closest comparables you'll look at are office and retail. Like a bank is a mix of, in my opinion, office and retail. You need the storefront, you know, the customer facing part of the business is retail, in my opinion, and then you do have office space within an office, within a bank. So you can see our third row, suburban A or B OFS between the city is between 6.2 and 7.3 if you take out the 20th and 80th, and if you look at the low and high end, you're at 5.5 and 9.05 for the large range of OFS. Our subject property is at 5.7 on the cycle, so we're at the very low end of OFS, even on the lowest range there, even without that 20% taken out, and it's mostly, again, due to age and size of the building. So a very small building like this tends to drive the lowest cap rates on our for our range of OFSs. Page 10 going forward is just, with page 10 and 11, 12 and 13 are the income and expense mailer, but from my understanding, I did write a note on this one. We have a gross rent in place, I did not take it into account. And then I've just included our addenda going to page 14 forward, which I include in all of our briefs. That is my presentation. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Martel, questions?
Were there no banks available with effective ages from the 1970s?
Not on my list, no.
Okay, so is this a general list that you've provided for?
This is I've used for guaranteed net rents for all the banks I've done this cycle.
Okay, and you've got quite a few here that are $30+, some are $40+. Can you explain the difference here?
Most often a newer built bank is gonna generate a higher rent. So
Okay.
like if I'm looking at a 2017 build, $45, and compare it to, you know, banks built in the 80s and 90s, there tends to be the relationship between the age built and the rent.
And some of these may be built to suit.
Yes, absolutely agreed.
Do you think that a bank would pay a premium to be in places like Bridgewater?
Yeah, absolutely, do for sure.
In terms of your capitalization rate, 5.70, that's getting quite low, isn't it? Where did you get this capitalization rate from?
This is a model-driven cap rate based on the size, location, age, and then there's a range for banks. So I don't know exactly how it's created, but again, I compared it most to retail or office.
So what you're saying is that based on the location and the size, the capitalization rate is driving downwards?
What do you mean?
You're-
Oh, it's like that compared to a higher one?
Yeah,
Yeah, the size of the bank and the location and the effective age built is driving a 5.7% capitalization rate for banks.
and have you seen any banks that have gone vacant, situation like this?
I'm sure it exists, I don't know one offhand.
You don't think that there's any more risk to a property like this being in what I would call probably an inferior location?
Compared to a main route on a street, it's definitely a higher risk.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Richard?
Just for clarification, on the mailer it says 4,000 square feet, and your evidence it says 2241.
Yes.
Can you, again, maybe you
The-
clarified it and I missed that.
I don't know exactly why the leasable area was changed, the gross area from 4482 was changed to 2241. I'm not sure what that includes, so I can't tell you on that. They're saying 4,000 even as what their lease in place, and that maybe that's changed since the last time it was looked at. But at one point it was 2,241 square feet as considered leasable in this building.
And you agree
It
with
details
the
that.
appellant, so
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I know there's a basement in there, but
Yeah, the basement space is, I'm guessing they're considering 2,000 square feet of that, but again, for our purposes of this bank, we have 2,241 square feet main floor leasable.
thank you. No other questions?
Ken?
We have an effective date of 1975.
Yes.
What was changed?
There was just a 2012 permit, the most recent permit that we have a record of. In 2012, there was $250,000 approximately spent in interior alterations. So that's the most recent, and exactly what changed, I don't have the details.
Okay, but it was 250,000.
Yeah.
That's all. Any questions, Mr. Chair?
Did somebody actually visit the site or just use the permits to bring that up?
I don't know when this was last updated,
But it's the assessment department that does it, correct?
that updates the characteristics
Yeah.
for us, yeah, absolutely.
If you don't know if there was a walkthrough. Your cap rate, you said you used office?
I'm saying the model is, we're showing on this income chart,
Yep.
office and retail ranges. I'm just saying we're on the low, very low end of office for this one for OFS.
But even your 20 percentiles at 6.2 and your
Yeah, this is, if you
80s at
include,
7.3.
yeah, for OFS for sure, we're below the 20th percentile.
Would a bank not have a higher one because of some of the things that are in it?
If that's your thoughts on it, for sure, like, there's an argument to be made for a higher cap rate.
We'll see what the appellant does with it. Marcello, when you're ready, your presentation.
Again, this is 235 Marion Street. On page 2, you can have a street view look of the property. On page 3, you can see a side and rear view. And then you can see that there are no windows in the basement area, so this is, we call it an unusable basement storage area, but it's below, in our opinion, it's not really usable. I believe that that's why the city has that square footage also. So again, located at 235 Marion Street. The site area is approximately 3,686 square feet and is presently zoned C2. This is again a standalone site. There's no recent sales on record. If you turn to page 8, we have a set of comparables here ranging between $13 and $38. We have a few here that are from the 1970s in terms of effective age. We've assigned a rent of $14.25 per square foot. That gives us an annual potential of $31,934. Vacancy, we're agreeing with the city, we're assigning a 2% vacancy rate, $8 shortfall, 7% for non-recoverable expenses. And if you turn to page 12, you can see the full income approach summary. So again, $31,934 in potential, 2% vacancy, 7% non-recoverables, $8 shortfall rate, gives us a net operating income of $28,746. Capitalized at 7.25, that gives us a value of $396,501, or $397,000. If you turn to the appendix, first page of the appendix on page 14, you can see the scattering of the different sales throughout the city for the different leases. And beyond that, we have some of the comparables leases. And that's not Borad Way, that's actually Broadway. 1441 Henderson Highway, 1565 Regent, 4910 Roblin, 1395 Ellis Street, 444 St. Mary's, 1038 Keewatin, 20 Lakewood, 2840 Pembina, 2855 Pembina, and on and on and on. We ask that the board revise to our value, and I'm open for questions.
Jonathan?
Just quickly. So your comparables you're using are all banks? On
Yes.
page 8, okay, and then, you've chosen the 1425, due to its, like, your average sample leases below are 24.47 a square foot. You're using 1425 based on age and kind of the odd, like the smaller size of the building and where it's located, correct?
Right, and the location and the type of building that you're looking at. I mean, this is not your typical bank for today. It may have been in 1960, but not in, 2020.
Thank you very much. And your cap rate, you were asking
7.25.
55. Is that, you use that for most banks, or do you adjust it per bank situation?
We adjust it for the location, so this is, in our opinion, an inferior location and an
Yeah.
inferior building.
So this would be one of your higher caps for a bank,
Exactly.
7.25%. Okay, thank you.
Richard?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Ken?
Do we know what was done with respect to the $250,000 renovations here?
So, I walked in,
Yeah.
it looks like there have just been some cosmetic changes to the property, so it's a little bit more updated. I don't know what it was before the updates, but I believe that's it, it's just some cosmetic updates.
Have you?
New counters, new lighting,
Okay.
new flooring. So, I would say probably maybe even, I can't really speak of mechanicals because I just walked in kind of like a customer.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
So have you been in basement?
No, I have not.
Yeah. How many parking stalls does this location have?
So if you turn to page, page 3,
Three?
so you can see the rear view, and, I mean, the way that I interpret it is, this building doesn't have parking. There's a couple of parking spots there. What I would say is probably for the bank manager and maybe another employee. When I parked there, I parked on the side, just like many other people that I saw parking, going into the building were parking on the side, and on Marion also. So, in my opinion, this thing doesn't have very much parking.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That'll conclude that matter. Let's move on to the next one. 32, oh, did anybody have anything they want to say?
No, thank you.
No, we're good. 3217 Portage Avenue, amount of assessed value. Jonathan, when you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have roll number 073285099900, address 3217 Portage Avenue. This is on Portage in the corner of School Road. You can see the 2020 value is $2,821,000. We have a 2013 bill. You can see it's a newer bank. We have it as 2 stories. We have gross floor area of 8,153 square feet and a leasable area of 8,153 square feet. You can see a better picture of how the building's laid out on page 2. You can see the straight view of the building. And you can also see page 3 from the School Road itself. Page 4, again, this, sale in 2010 for $775. We have a page 5 income stream is the important part here. What we're looking at, we have a main floor area of 5,353 square feet, and our bank classification. So that gives a model rent of $28.61. So this is based on that newer year build, size of it, and the location being along Portage Avenue. And then we have 2,800 square feet of mezzanine slash storage space in this building. That's what makes it the 2-story. It has some mezzanine area. And that gives a lower rent of $14.51 a square foot. And we have our standard, again, our standard parameters for banks. We have 2% vacancy, 2% expenses, $8 shortfall again, and then this time the model is derived a cap rate of 6.55%, again, based on that size, age, and location of the building. So page 6, again, you'll see the same bank comparables I'll have on every one, but you can look along there and see like a newer build. You can see comparable 3, 2016, you're at $32. You can see a build in even 2004, 895 Empress, comparable number 4. You're getting a rent of $24 for a large bank with a space of 16,800 square feet, because we're at an 8,000 square foot bank here. Again, if you scroll down mine, you can see comparable 7 and 8 are 2013 builds, very similar to the subject property, and you can see they're driving rents of $31.50 and $37 a square foot. So that's for 4,000 and 5,000 square foot banks, And scrolling down a bit more, you can see a brand new build, comparable number 15, 30 Center Street, built in 2017. You're getting a rent of $45 a square foot on a smaller bank, that's 3,800 square feet. So again, across all our banks with a range of years built, you're getting an average of $26.88. Our 2013 built bank is at $28 for main floor space, $14 for mezz. If you wanna look at it as all 8,000 square feet blended, $23.76 a square foot. Again, scrolling through, you'll see the mailer was put in on page 10, built out, and we have a fully owner occupied building, so no net lease to look at on this one. And I've included my addenda, page 12 going forward. If you have any questions on this one, please let me know. Thank you.
Marcelo?
I guess the obvious question is the capitalization rate. So we just dealt with a property which we thought was in an inferior location, inferior property.
Yep.
And yet the capitalization rate on this property is substantially higher.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it is, our model is going to take in buildings nearby to make a cap rate. So we're in a different location of the city. You know, St. Boniface closer to downtown. That bank similar to a smaller strip mall on thing. It's not a perfect explanation, but it's going to drive a lower rent for that small building in St. Boniface than a larger bank outside of downtown. Again, it is the main reason there's a difference in the cap rate.
So would you say that the capitalization rate on a bank, say in a power center, or one of these new developments like Bridgewater would drive a slightly lower capitalization rate?
Yeah, like if you're comparing Sage Creek to a Bridgewater, I'd hope they'd have similar cap rates. Like it's just, when you're comparing a small strip mall style building to a standalone new build, it's getting a different, it's using different buildings in the area. It's just not a perfect comparison.
Okay, those are my questions.
Ken?
You had a sale listed with the subject property, and it was on December 2nd, 2010,
Yes.
of $775,000. Was that an actual sale?
I believe it was an actual sale for the land. I'm not sure if they bulldozed something or if there was something there before. I cannot remember, sorry.
Okay, so this was a land sale?
I'm not gonna say confidently, but it was a sale before they built this building.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just not sure what was there before, if it was a building they tore down or if it was just land. I can't answer.
It was just listed.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a two-story complex.
Yeah, we have it as two-story because it has that mezzanine space, so it has kind of a second floor. Some banks have that kind of second floor storage, staff room, whatever. I'm not sure the specifics of this one, but that's the difference between a one-story bank and what we consider a two-story bank.
And there's no basement.
No basement, from my understanding.
Okay, and parking here.
Yeah, ample. There's a building like this outside of downtown requires parking, so it has the actual space for parking on the lot.
Okay, because there's nothing listed here for parking.
Yeah, like suburban parking,
It's-
in the majority of cases is, it's always required, but we won't specify how many parking stalls there are there, because we're not driving an income from them.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair?
Richard?
The ratio of 5.10 doesn't, looking at your photos, doesn't provide adequate space for excess or surplus land here, does it? Because of the
Yeah, for-
configuration?
Yeah, from my look at this one, the bank and parking,
Yeah.
it looks like it's fine. It didn't, we're not considering excess land on this one or surplus land.
Okay, thank you. Nothing else?
Did you investigate these rent comparables at all?
Like investigate, like and confirm that they're net,
Yeah,
like the best I could, yeah.
Bridgewater?
Bridgewater, new build, yeah, it's reported as a net lease for the new build in Bridgewater.
How about the Sage Creek one?
Sage Creek, again, reported as a net rent, that's what I saw on the lease that's been sent in, or in the mailer that's been sent into the city that we use for rent comparables.
Okay, you're on with the presentation, Martel.
This is 3217 Portage Avenue. On page 2, you can see a street view picture of it. Again, it's on the northwest corner of the intersection of Portage Avenue and School Road. On page 3, you can also see a more detailed address map here. In terms of the overall property size, the aesthetic area is 27,314 square feet, zone C2, and it fronts Portage Avenue, obviously. On page 4, you can see a pano picture of this. It does have parking, obviously, that is a requirement under the zoning. The highest and best use is determined to be its current use. In terms of the analysis, we are looking at the physical state of the property as of today, however, with reference to the valuation date of April 1, 2018. And we are using the income approach in this example. So we've assigned a main floor rent of $28 and a mezzanine of half the price, which is $14. Overall, that is $23.19 per square foot. We have our comparables here, and we can look at the comparables afterwards. Vacancy, we agree with the city at 2%, shortfall $8, non-recoverables 7%, and the capitalization rate that we apply is 7%. So we are asking for a rounded value of $2,443,000. In the appendix, again, you can see the leases on page 14. And then you can scroll through the different comparables that we've used. And I am open for questions.
Jonathan.
Oh, just
Same question as last
Needed
time.
that stretching.
Yeah.
Same questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Richard,
no, I'm fine, thanks.
Ken,
I'm good.
and I have one, only because of curiosity. On the storage and mezzanine, is there an elevator or is it stairs?
I wasn't in the property. I can't speak to whether there's an elevator.
Yeah, I don't know the quality of the mezzanine space on this property.
Under the plan, they have to have the main floor accessible, but I guess they don't have to have the upstairs accessible.
Because there's office areas in the main floor also. I don't even know what the mezzanine was being used
Yeah,
as.
like I know the bank just down the street that I had, it had an elevator in that second floor space. It was a newer build, but I can't say for certain if this one has that same setup.
Okay. Good enough. Thank you. That will conclude the matter. Thank you very much, Marcelo. Have a
Thank
great day.
You too. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We're gonna take a 5-minute. We'll call the meeting back to order. The next property on our docket is, before we start, can you swear Rocky in, please?
Please state your full name,
Rocky Newfield.
and do you affirm the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Next property will be 803 Leela Avenue, amount of assessed value. Jonathan, when you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are looking at 803 Leela Avenue. This is roll number 1105-086-4200. This is a bank right across from Garden City Mall. You can see it's built in the original building was built in 1989, and after some renovations after the bank was bought and converted, the building was converted to a bank. We have an effective year of 2005 on this building. So we have a gross floor area of 6,339 square feet and a leasable area of 6,336 square feet. The bank was bought in 2010 for $1 million. It was originally a restaurant. It was then, there were 600,000 in permits in 2010, which updated it to a bank. And that's what it currently is valued at. We have a pictures on page 2. You can see the layout of the building, exactly where it is in the lot. You can see the street view on page 2 and page 3. Our the way this property is valued is, it is valued at 2 income streams, so this building has, as some of the Synovas do, it has the bank portion, and it has a separate, kind of office portion of the building that usually houses an insurance company. They work well together. You can see that our first income stream on page 5 is the office portion, this is the insurance portion of the building, and, we have 2,223 square feet at $16.88. We have, using our OFS parameters for 2020, we have 5.5% vacancy, 2% expenses, $7 shortfall, and a 5.55% capitalization rate. That's giving our total value of the insurance portion of $592,000. And then if we're looking at the bank portion on page 6, we have 4,113 square feet, model-driven value rental rate of $23.60. We have a vacancy loss of 2%. Expenses 2%, shortfall $8, and an overall capitalization rate of 5.55%. That gives us a total value for the bank side of $1,668,000. And if you ever need to look on page 10, they're put together, and you can see the 2 streams, total value $2,260,000. So that's how it's, that is how it is valued together. For the OFS portion, I have looked ahead, I have included a wide range of OFS rents on page 8 through 9, but I believe our rent on this one is actually lower than the appellant, so I won't spend too much time arguing the OFS portion rent, but you'll see for banks, I've included the same bank comparables as before, all the way throughout. We have a 2000 year of effective 2005 on this one. Again, you can see for the actual rental rates themselves, 895 Empress, comparable 4, was built in 2004. We have a rental rate of $24.51. And other banks built in the early 2000s, you have 3260 Portage, that's comparable 14. 2001 build, 6,500 square feet at $31 a square foot. Same story going forward on the comparable, on the capitalization rate sheet. You can see page 13 is the mailer sent in. We have a partially owner-occupied building where the Sonova is the owner-occupier of the bank, and then there is a gross income type of rent being reported on the page 13, and then page 14, they are saying it's a net rent for that, that other company within the property, but again, if it's a rent or not, there's not a lot of disagreement on the rental rate for that OFS portion, so. Page 16 going forward is just the addenda, and if you have any more questions, please let me know, thank you.
Rocky, questions?
Yes, sorry, I was just looking, do you have a summary page on your revenue stream, or do we just have to add up page 5 and 6?
Sorry, my page 5 and 6, if you turn to page 10,
Okay,
we have a
sorry.
summary page.
All right, okay. So pages 5, 6, and 10, are they all from the model?
Yes, all model driven.
Now, the cap rate on both revenue streams at 555, I'd heard someone testify early, and a colleague of yours, that that you use an area break of 5,000 square feet. At below 5,000, it's 555, above 5,000, it's 655.
If that's the exact break, I would trust, sure. I don't know I haven't seen the, you know, what is the break point for a change in size and how that affects the rate.
So these two sections aren't separately marketable, are they?
No, they're part of the same building, it would sell together for sure.
Right, and so isn't it prejudicial to treat them as two revenue streams when it's one building? And then if you're losing the whole point on the city's model as a result of doing it this way, isn't that just an artificial way to drive up the value?
Yeah, I mean, if that's the side effect of having them separate, it's not done on purpose, but
No,
it's a point taken.
Okay. You talked about permits, but you didn't investigate those permits to determine if they were for business upgrade or they were for real estate changes, have you?
Yeah, the exact changes of that to turn it from a Red Lobster or Olive Garden or whatever it was into a bank, I'm not sure the exact changes that went down, but they converted it to new use.
Did your model account for deficiency in parking?
For like having no parking outside, it's owning its own parking, no, it doesn't take that into account.
I mean, I'm looking at the picture on page 2, and there is no parking.
Yeah.
Sorry, there might be some parking at the rear, looks like 6 or 7 stalls.
Our rent does not change based on the land plan.
But they are required to have parking.
If it was on its own, yeah, like a separate, absolutely suburban required parking.
Right, and it's marketing in order for its use. They're not gonna attract a user without parking, will they?
Yeah, again, I'm sure when they built, being part of this greater lot, they knew they would have some sort of parking in that lot, right? And I'm sure that was part of it, but it does, our model doesn't take that into account, if that's the question.
Well, yeah, but your model does take into account, because if, we've seen lots of cases where the model deems there's excess land, and therefore a value is added to a site. In this case, we have a lack of land, so the model only goes one way?
Well, yeah, it's not giving it a negative adjustment for having no parking, if that's what you're asking.
Oh, I'm just gonna ask you a few questions here, because I know we're gonna have some issues later with the rent, so let's just get it out of the way.
Sure.
The ones on page 7, have they been reviewed to determine that they're actually net rents?
They've all been reviewed and confirmed by the mailer from that, the mailer shows a net rent in place.
You're not aware that number 15 was withdrawn by one of your colleagues on Thursday?
No, I wasn't aware, I've not been updated if it's, if it is, some sort of non-net rent that's reporting net, I don't know about it.
Okay. Those are my questions, thank you.
Richard?
Nothing, thanks.
Ken?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
And nothing from me. Move on to your presentation, Mr. Whitfeld.
Thank you. As the assessor pointed out, this used to be Olive Garden.
I thought Red Lobster, but.
Okay.
It's one of them.
There is beside each other.
Yeah.
One became a bank, the
Maybe
other
I'm thinking
became
of
the Salisbury House,
Yeah.
yes. And they purchased the site, and they did do some interior work to change it to a bank. But of course, that's, was limited, basically, it was, the business, cost of the business. It's new millwork for bank counters, the vault, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing was really upgrading the real estate by any stretch. Matter of fact, one may even argue they downgraded the real estate by taking out the restaurant improvements, which would be hoods and mechanical equipment, in favor of six walls, as they say. It's owner occupied, and the tenant in there, the insurance company, is an arm's length tenant that we do co-locate with the credit union, I should say, in several places. We've used their calculated paid rent on my page 1 and applied a rent of $20. Now, the assessor's correct in that on our potential rent, we don't vary a great deal. And our rents that we were looking at on page 3, these are the rents we're relying on, and they are, have been vetted as being free of influences that would that would show them to be not meeting the definition of market value. And I didn't present it. Oh, I had a chance for rebuttal. I'll catch it the next one. I got the lease on 30 Center, and I'll show you what I mean by a real net lease. There's a couple of banks, of the major banks, who amortize everything, including business equipment in the leases. And there's no shortage of investors who are willing to lend the bank money. It's not that they need the money, but it's a way that they write off things. A rent's 100% deductible rather than amortizing leasehold improvements. So each bank has their own concept of it. And what we have to do when we're valuing properties is find leases that don't have this influence. There are two ways of dealing with this influence. One is if you have the actual number, you can make an adjustment. You don't have the actual number, take it out. Don't rely on it. So that's sort of a primer in dealing with banks. Now, other than we're close to the same on the vacancy rate. What we're doing is the concept of a bank having a separate vacancy rate is unreasonable. I'm using nice language today. It doesn't exist. A bank is a retail property, and in retail, you live with the market. Now, some might wanna call it close to an office, that's fine, suburban office is interesting as well. But what we've done is relied on the Johnson report and looked at these vacancies, and we show that the retail across Winnipeg was 6.5, the office 6.4, so that gives us a pretty strong indication that a reasonable rate to apply would be 6.5%, which we've done. And the district itself, which is Garden City, actually has a rate, and we didn't want to use this because it was extremely high. With, I think it's Sears moving out, the vacancies in Garden City jumped from 4% up to 12%. So that's an anomaly, so we weren't looking at that. As I said, we do have all the vacancies. There's about 800 records here. And I believe if you're gonna use a model, you better have the data to back it up, not a mystery model. The non-recoverables were applying at 5%, and that's standard with any investment property, whether it's, and we put our study on the back page of our report. That's standard with any investment property. All properties have non-recoverables. And our study very well supports this. Structural reserve, we've moved to using a roof replacement as our reserve. The allocation of 25 cents a foot gets you, after 25 years, provides about $20 a foot for redoing a roof, which is the going rate, and that's what the reserve would be. These are flat roofs, so they're going to obviously need replacement at some point. Now the shortfall is different, because in this case, we were looking at some of the actual costs, and I think that the R&M is a bit on the high side. There's actually a small error in our shortfall rate, in that the R&M has a cost in it that is considered elsewhere, and that's my next category. So that shortfall should be slightly lower, and the net effect on it would be about. It would actually be closer to, sorry, one sec, about $1 difference. So we should be looking at $12 shortfall rather than $13.29. So that's a 5% drop. So my shortfall should be $250 lower. Sorry, 10% drop. Should be $500 lower. So the NOI favorably should be in the neighborhood of about $99,000. Now that error was due to the parking. Now in the costs, the parking has been placed in the costs. Olive Garden or Red Lobster, whenever it was open, used to be part of the mall right behind it, and in that mall there was I think a Future Shop and something else. And when the Olive Garden, when the company, I just remember their name, they wanted pad sites, but they also needed parking. So in their purchase, they rented the land in between the Olive Garden and the Red Lobster. So all of that parking space between there is rented land. And their cost of renting it is the cost of upkeep, which is $11,000. And it's around, well, I think the last time we saw it was 11,120 or something like that. The year before it was 10,800. So they get charged that cost, and so we've taken it off the net income. It's an unusual situation, but in order to meet bylaw, first of all, you need 26 stalls for this site. This is C4, so it's under shopping center parking bylaw, which requires 26 stalls, 1 per 250 square feet. And it's not just the concept of the bylaw, because really, who cares about the bylaw? It's about renting it. If you don't have a place for people to park, you're not getting anything for rent, not in the suburbs. So that is a business cost. The cap rate we selected is based on a combination of factors, and the two that are the most negative are the fact that even though we have an allocation for parking, we don't have control over it. So it's not, doesn't go with the title. And it is subject to an off-site agreement. So if, for example, the site behind it were to go through a foreclosure, the right of quiet enjoyment doesn't necessarily extend to renting parking space out. And this has happened in different occasions in the city, so that's a risk factor. The other is that it is a converted restaurant, so it wasn't designed for its current use. And it's shown the ability to adapt to it, but we are talking about a conversion. Collier's cap rate study would likely consider a property like this, and that's on the definitions, page 25, on retail. Under the strip category, because it's a smaller site, and the covenant, even though it's local Sonova, would generally be considered to be of interest to an investor. So our strip on that is between 7% and 8%. So that's where it generally would fall in, and then adjusted.
What page is that, sorry?
On page 27. And the definitions.
That's the prime rates?
Yeah, the definitions were on page 25. So we're generally looking between the 7% and the 8% range for properties like this, and then upward adjustment for those two factors. I think that in review of this site, sorry, I was just looking up something. The cap rate is probably a bit on the negative side, but again, it's a concern for the parking. So in this case, I would probably, review in the office thought that closer to 8% would be more reasonable. And I've rounded my NOI towards 99,000. At 8% is 1,237,500. Rounded to 1,238,000. Last year's result was a decision of the board. Year before is under appeal, that's from 2016. Also, in terms of capitalization rates, I think the strips that I've shown you are relatively inferior, and we have a couple here. And there's also some suburban office, and they are ranging all around that 8% category. So I think it should generally cap more aggressively but for the parking rental site on it. And that's my presentation.
Jonathan, questions?
Yeah, just very quickly, for your cap rates, I think I've asked this before, so it's been a while, but for my understanding, when you include your caps, your advertising caps on page 22 and 23, correct?
Yes.
The lower caps, so you retail, so page 22, 2016 caps, you said this, something, retail strip mall, right? So the low is between 6 and the high is 7%. And then if we go to 2018 on the next page, page 23, our cap rates for retail are between 6 and 6.75%. And then we turn to your page 26, which you were talking about the prime rates, which, if I remember correctly, is after you take land transfer and fees, you're getting rid of the advertisement part, you're giving them the true cap rates,
Right.
which you call
These
prime
are-
rates.
23 is the cap rate for the purchaser.
Absolutely,
And that's
okay.
not how you do appraisal, you do it, a standardized cap rate. You know, it's sort of like saying, do you account for getting good money or not? We
Yes.
don't, we're good rates will and we don't. We just everything's gotta be standardized.
Absolutely, and for your cap rate sales for page 26, it just says, it's kind of like the information for it, and it says at the bottom, all rates for premium sites, all rates are for premium sites and do not reflect mid-range or lower products. The data is heavily populated with REIT sales and pension fund sales. And so,
Right.
This is to you as an investment rank
Well, it's,
sale building.
it would attract investor interest. Now, if this were a chartered bank, then that rate would be lower, because you'd have more interest on it. Now, the problem with the credit unions is that, with the continued deregulation, they're not seen as the greatest covenant, because they used to have a law that they could only lend money that they actually had. Now they're getting offshore or out-of-country money. Now, that's not something we worry about in assessment, but would one of the charter banks even want this location is what we're concerned about. And they would look at it and say, I don't like that leased land stuff. You wanna rent to me? I wanna see a legal document that binds that land to me, and not what we have going with the neighbor.
Thank you. And that's what brings the difference
Yes.
between 6 and 6.7 up to years 7 and 8 on.
Well, that difference is just based on the type of product it is, and then the land lease situation brings it up to the top end of that range.
Okay, thank you. One sec, sorry. Okay, thank you very much. That's all my questions.
Richard,
Nothing, thank you.
Ken?
Okay, so they actually are paying 11,000 on parking yearly.
Yes.
Okay, and it's not shared with,
Well, the Salisbury house next door has to pay parking as well to the mall owner in the back. Both parties pay a cost, and it's, sorry, I had it, 4 years ago it was 10,400. 2 years ago it was 10,800, now I think it's 11,100. And of course yes, that's correct.
excellent, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We run into this before where we have a land lease for parking. And then we say because we have to rent the land, it affects the sale of the property. But if we're raising the cap rate up higher, should we still be taking the 11,000? Or if we take the 11,000, should we still be doing the cap?
Well, the 11 is the actual cost of
Yeah.
it, so we're applying that. And the reason I'm raising the cap is because, just because we have a deal to pay for it, it's the uncertainty of the deal. It's not a good, strong protection for a user. It's not registered on title. It's an agreement that's written in the purchase agreement. And as such, the problem becomes the right of quiet enjoyment. And I don't know if anyone's had experience with that, but I was once working at this restaurant where the guy had this fabulous rent, and the owner said, I want to change your rent. He said, no. So he bankrupted his company, and there was no right of quiet enjoyment. And after bankrupting it, the rent doubled, right? Because it's not part of the lease agreement with quiet enjoyment, and it wasn't registered in the lease itself. Sorry, in the title itself. So those are the issues that we're concerned about, is that this could change by actions of a third party, and it's not certain. And what would likely happen isn't so much that they would lose the parking, is that because they would have a claim to it of some sort, but they would have a higher rental rate. It's a good rate, and it was based on when the arrangement when the Olive Garden people got a split for their pad sites. But that was 20, when was that? 30 years ago.
I've got no further questions. Let's move on to the next one. Next property on our agenda will be 515 St. Anne's Road, amount of assessed value, Jonathan, when you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're looking at roll number 0802096830. This is 515 St. Anne's Road. This property is located north of Bishop Brandon. You can see aerial pictures on page 2 of where it lays out and how the parking works on this one. You can also see some street view on page 3. We have a bank built in 2005. We have a gross floor area of 6,000 square feet. We have a leasable area of 5,700 square feet total. This is 2,700 square feet of basement and 3,000 square feet of main floor bank space. You can see on page 5, we have the income stream for this property, so we're back to one income stream. This is our bank classification. We have 3,000 square feet at $25.85. We have a substandard basement for the remainder of the income stream, 2,700 square feet at $3.60. And using our standard bank parameters going down for 2020, we have the same parameters as before: 2% vacancy, 2% expenses, $8 shortfall, 6.55% cap rate, and we get a capitalized value of $1,266,000 on this property. You can see, again, I've used the same bank comparables on page 6 that I've used for the last one, and I will continue to going forward. Page 7, we have the income stream again. It's only one, same capitalization rates field, page 8. We do have a fully owner-occupied building on page 10 again. So page 10, you see it's fully owner-occupied, reporting expenses, but no net leases to compare to. And just make sure I've got a note here, but I think that is the main part of this one. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
The last property, I asked you about this 5,000 square foot barrier. Now, here, you can see that you're at 5,000 feet and the cap raised to 655. Did you note that?
I see that the cap is at 6.55 and the square footage is 5,700.
Okay. Have you been in the basement to look at it?
No, I've never been. I imagine it's just bank storage space. That's why we use it as the substandard storage.
So, okay, and those are my questions. Thank you.
Richard,
Nothing.
Ken,
Sorry, you're using a blended rate. What is the blended rental?
The blended rate for this property is $15.31.
1531?
So unless I did that wrong.
I got the same number.
Confirmed $15.31.
No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Did I go to you already, Richard?
Yep.
I thought I had. I'm just running a little short here today. Might need some more fuel. Which properties on your comparables would be the closest ones to St. Mary's?
We have a 2005 built on St. Mary's, using close to 2005. If you look at comparable 2 is 115 Vermilion Road in Southdale. It's built in 1990 and is a $27 rent. I mean, getting a bit out of the, you can also look at 111 Vermilion Road, comparable 13 is in Southdale. We have 1988 built, 5,000 square feet at $25 a square foot. You know, our last 2 are out of the subject area, but built in 93 and 89, and they have a range of $23 to $25 for 3,000 square foot of bank space. So it's all within the range, in my opinion.
Okay. On with your presentation, Mr. Newcomb.
Yes, first of all, this was the rebuttal I was gonna hand out earlier. This is regarding comparable number 15. I've got lots of copies here, so
Okay.
I don't know how many you can.
Okay.
And I have a copy, if the assessor wants a copy of the actual lease.
It's fine. Just so you know, I can cross out comparable 15 or whatever it is for Bridgewater. I
Okay.
agree with you.
All right.
Are you gonna go into this then, or?
If he's crossing it off, it's just support for crossing it out. It shows that the site was impacted by a huge tenant improvement and its net effective rent is substantially lower.
This is the stage property,
No, this is.
Bridgewater.
this is the Bridgewater one?
Yeah, 30, the one, there's that.
$45 rent.
This is where the snowplow would go into the side of it at some point. Now, well, okay, so that was, we have this, okay, got it. When we look at this site, the basement is not marketable. It's an amenity. You can't charge a rent for it under anyone's standard. In order to include space as rentable, you have to meet standards such that it has to be demisable. It has to have everything up to code for occupancy. It has to prove it can rent. This was built at a time when paper records were still being used in the financial institutions towards the tail end of that era, and all the records were kept in the basements. Everything's electronic now, so the only thing in the basement are Christmas decorations and stacking chairs. And the other thing about it is building code. In 2007, national code changed. 2011, the city began enforcing all code upgrades, which means if you've got basement space, it better be barrier-free access. That means an elevator down to it, and that's to become rentable. So it's not rentable, and we only put it in because, you know, we're not saying it doesn't exist, we're just saying it has no value. The rent we put on it would actually in the market only be defined by the upper level. And on that basis, that number is $73,500. On the main area, that actually works out to $24.50 a foot. And that's the amount that should be on it. So we're reasonably close to the assessor's number in terms of he's at $25.85, we're at $24.50, and the basement should just not count. And even with the comps he brought up, I would somewhat agree with him at $25, this is what we're looking at. It's just an amenity, and as I said, the market doesn't recognize it. There are others, calculations are the same on the vacancy rate, 5% non-recoverable, structural reserve, and in this case, we had calculated out the shortfall at actual of about $11.50, and the reason it's so much higher than the assessor's numbers are rather simple. The taxes alone are $4.50 a foot, and the repair and maintenance, this one's lower than the last one we looked at, but this is closer to it. The cost to maintain the banks are higher than other properties. In this case, and I'll talk about it in the cap later, one of their big issues is poor design, too much glass, and it's basically too hot in the summer and too cold in the winter. So do have a double system now going with higher utility costs. And it was, they have a number of sites that are impacted by the poor HVAC. This one is one of the worst. So in order to get the look with a little raised roof, you get the poor ventilation, and then that drives the shortfall up. The NOI is 59,670 calculated, and as far as the cap is concerned, I think by addressing those HVAC costs in our shortfall and with the vacancy, I think most of the factors are dealt with. I had said earlier that a range for this type of property is between 7 and 8, and I know that there have been some numerous decisions at the board, and the last one I attended was at 7.25, and I think that that's reasonable. The deficiencies in this property, as I said, are addressed by other factors, unlike the previous one where the deficiency had to do with something, legal rights, which can't be fixed. So the number would be, and I can't, this calculator was working for me. I knew that number was wrong. 823,034. rounded to 823,000. Now that is below last year's number, which, I don't know what that was. Oh, here we go, let's see what it was. Adjusted market rent. No other details on it. And that's my presentation. 7.25% was the only change.
Jonathan?
Just quickly, you put the 2018 assessment on your front page there, 1,075,000.
Right.
I didn't look, did you appeal that one to the municipal board?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you, that's all my questions.
But there's a history on this, and, well, 12 was settled, I think 14 is outstanding.
Richard?
No, it's fine, thank you.
Ken?
Have you actually been to this
Oh,
location?
yes,
You
yes,
have.
numerous times, yes.
What's in the basement now?
But like I said, the basement, I was there when they first, right after they first built it, and again, it was paper record storage. I think there was a small kitchenette down there in one room and a staff bathroom. Since they went electronic, it's basically empty. And the service areas, like I said, the kitchenette and the restroom down there, are not, rentable area, it's service area. No value can come from them. I always bring my textbook with me, you know. But you can't, in our appraisal methodology, you can't put a rent on a basement that you can't rent to anyone, right? You have to prove you can rent. It's amenity. So, all things considered, if you had 3 bank rents and one had a basement, one didn't, yeah, you might get 50 cents a foot more for it. But it's also dead space now, so, you know, no one uses basements anymore.
What's wrong with the HVAC?
Oh, it's underpowered, and when they designed and built it, you'll look at the picture and see the middle section that rises above it. And so it has a higher ceiling and it's all glassed in, and the bulk of the windows face the south. So the worst part is in the summer, where the heat, they can't keep up with the air conditioning. So they've redone the units, and now what they've had to do is go to, they've doubled up their capacity on that, which means that they're running higher costs to make up for a poor design. In the winter problem is, again, with all the glass, is they've added baseboard heaters all around to supplement the package system. And again, we're raising the costs up. So it's just becomes a more expensive building to operate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That concludes that matter. Let's move on to the next one, which will be 1250 Portage Avenue, the amount of assessed value. When you're ready, Jonathan.
Mr. Chair, could I request a 30-second break? I saw the room's open, I just want to fill up my water.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just thirsty.
Call the meeting back to order. We'll be dealing with 1250 Portage Avenue, amount of assessed value. When you're ready, Jonathan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, we're looking at roll number 1208059500. Again, 1250 Portage Avenue. This is Portage and Clifton. You can see we have a 2020 value on the first page of $992,000. This is based on a one-story bank built in 1985. We have a gross floor area of 4,696 square feet with a leasable area of 4,696 square feet. This is, and we also have basement area of that of 2,138 square feet. So again, similar to our last property, you can see on page 2, the layout of the property with the parking. Page 3, you can see the street view access. Page 5, similar income stream to the last, where we have the bank main floor of 2,558 square feet at $22.25. And we have the substandard basement, model driven again at $4.17. This is a model rate of $14.02 a square, or sorry, a blended rate of $14.02 a square foot. Standard bank parameters, this is last time, this model is, this property is driving a model rate of 6.3% cap rate. That's how you get the total of $992,000. Again, page 6, you can see all my comparables. Again, bank built in 1985. I have my first two rents, comparable 1 and 2 are built 1980, 1990, ranging, have a net rent per square foot from 18 to 27. 230 Portage is, again, our most downtown, and this is actually, well, it's closer to downtown than a lot of our banks, but we're at 1985 build on comparable 5 at 230 Portage, and it's getting a rent of $15 a square foot. You can see comparable 9 and 10 built in 50 and 89, ranging from $14 to $18 a square foot. So we're using a blended rate of, I just said it, but approximately $14 a square foot on this one. You can see on page 10, we have a fully owner-occupied premise, so again, expenses reported, but no net rent to look at. And my addenda going forward, page 14 forward, if you have any questions, please let me know out of my presentation.
Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, you brought up 230 Portage, have you been in the building?
I've been by it, not in.
Okay. So it's a 2-story building with a full basement,
Absolutely.
and you're only reporting first and second floor, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
Colleagues of yours have been in the basement, and it is fully finished, and there is elevator service to it.
Absolutely, right downtown, yeah.
But yet you're not including it in the area,
No,
but yet you're including basement in
on
the
this one, yes,
subject.
absolutely.
It's a bit of a, so if you're using $15 on that one and not renting the basement, and it was the one you brought up, why not $15 in the subject?
Yeah,
Upper
the-
levels.
Again, the way that lease is written out, just like you pointed out, it includes that basement space, right? So we use the actual lease.
Okay, and then, page 7, all by the model?
Yes, all model driven.
Okay, those are my questions.
Ken?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Richard?
Nothing, thank you.
On with your presentation, Rocky?
Thank you. Now, again, for the record, I did not prepare this valuation. The person who did has never been in the building. I have. Let's see, how do I say this? I would never put a rent anywhere near this on it. This is a tired old building in a part of town that just doesn't get good rents. In this case, you should never even be considering any rent focused solely on banks. You have to take into account the neighborhood. And regardless, I'm not gonna change this rate because that requires, I believe, out of respect, some advance warning, so we're gonna live with it. The rent should, again, like the other property, the credit union, should be expressed as just the main floor, but we've broken it down this way. That rent on just the main floor is $24.20. Like I said, that's ridiculously high, but, same as the last one, built for a time when basements were required, and now it's Christmas decoration storage. Same concept in the vacancy, looking at the market, non-recoverables, applying it, structural reserve. The mistake here, again, on the shortfall, and I'll show you exactly where that mistake occurred too. On page 5, there's their statement showing $105,000 in costs every year. Well, going through them, line item number 1 at 201 is a rent of $14,000 for insurance. Going rate for insurance is closer to 18 cents a foot on plan area, not basement. So that rent in a normal world is probably $4,600. The rest of it is likely liability insurance to do with their business, so not the real estate, so that shouldn't have been relied on. And a very high maintenance and repair, likely is a single item that needed repair this particular year. So I've just adjusted that number downwards to a shortfall of $10 a square foot, which takes the amount of 4331 down to about $3,000, and which changes my NOI upwards, and this is just an estimate, approximately 50,800. Now, as the cap rate is concerned, I think that there's a lot more competitive room in the cap rate, but not at $24 rent a foot. If it was 15, then there would be a good upside. Cap has got to balance with the rent. And the general rule of thumb is that if you got a high rent, your cap is going to be high because there's nowhere for it to go up. If you got a low rent, your cap can be low because the market is going to get you more money on revenue increases. So this rent is ridiculously high that was applied, so I'm keeping the cap at 8.5%, which we got a better calculator than this one here. Comes to 597,647, rounded to 598,000. Note things like, no ability to put drive-throughs, that sort of thing. And Portage Avenue, sure, great name, but this is a transitory section of Portage Avenue. The people going by are going from one place to another. The area here is to service the local community. As I said, doesn't generate rents that support it. And it would be comparable to the lower end of the range that we have on our page 3 for banks as a result, not the midpoint. A little bit more information about the history of this site. I've worked for Crosstown since 2003, and it just seems that we have a very difficult time with this property. It's not top grade retail. It's nothing like it. It's the usage is obsolete. The section of the city is a poor section as far as investment grade and ability to generate rents. The rents in the neighborhood range from $10 to $13 a foot. I've done numerous appraisals up and down here. There's nothing generating big money around here. Not until you hit Portage Avenue. I'm sorry, until you hit Polo Park. Every single year generates an appeal to the municipal board. We settled 2014 a couple months ago. 16 and 18 are still open, and every single year since I've been involved with this property has generated an appeal. And I'm not being stubborn at all. I'm trying to, again, there's a politically correct way to explain this, but I don't really know what it is, so watch me step over the line. If you want to assess it as a bank, you gotta go where the banks want to be. The banks want to be where people have money. Now, in the West End, you're more than likely to find someone with an ATM card who overdrafts when they take out $20. And that's not the model for a credit union. I don't mean anything negative by it, but there's a lower household income. And which means that there's gonna be less opportunity for banks, financial institutions to do what they do. They don't live by service fees, they live by deposits and loans. That's where their money is made, and that's why all these little branches across the city get shut down and they all get moved to the suburbs. That's my presentation.
Jonathan?
I have no questions, thank you.
Richard?
None?
Kent?
No questions, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Shortfall, 1628
Yeah, I changed that. What?
on this one. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm good. You can change it. Let's move on to the next property. The next property will be 26 2785 Pembina Highway. When you're ready, Jonathan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are at roll number 0306120510027885 Pembina. This is between Greencrest and Killarney, as you can see on page 2. We have a 2020 value of $2,937,000. We have a one-story bank built in 2007 with a gross floor area of 6,345 and a leasable area of 6,345. Page 5, income stream for this bank, 2007 bill, as I said. This is getting a rent of $31.74 from our model, overall 6,345 square feet. We have a vacancy loss of 2%, expenses of 2%, shortfall $8, and an overall capitalization rate of 6.55%. That's where we get the total value, all from this one income stream. Again, rent comparables on page 6, as I went through before. You can see the, had a note here. Again, the newer banks built, we have comparable 3, 1,200 grand, 2016, 6,200 square feet at $32, 895 Empress, 2004 at $24. The subjects here is comparable 6, 2785 Pembina, built in 2007, $32.08 a square foot for that lease. Comparable 14 is 3260 Portage, built in 2001, 6,500 square feet at $31 a square foot. So again, some more comparables defending the rent there. If we turn to page 11 forward is just the mailer sent in by the owner. If you turn to page 14, Bank of Montreal in the middle of the page, page 14 is their actual net rent in place. So again, all 6,351 square feet reported for a lease signed in 2007 that goes until 22. The latest step up was in 2017, which is very close to our reference date, and it's at $32 a square foot. So again, that's the net rent in place. If you go forward, we have our addenda, and if you have any more questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Questions, Mr. Newton?
So, page 7, all by the model,
Yes, model derived.
and sort of page 5 as well. And so this, earlier I was asking again the question, over 5,000 square feet, 6.55 cap, is that, looks like a model thing?
It seems to be consistent with your theory.
Okay. And other than what you presented for the statement, did you do any further investigation of the
No.
lease? Thank you, those are my questions.
Richard?
Nothing.
Ken?
These sale histories are, these just for the land?
I'm gonna assume it was land only in 2005, and then it was, when was this built? 2007. It would make sense to me.
Your rent comparables, page 6, what is the closest, I'll say comparables, if you would say to this property?
Again, for a year built, I would do for banks here, but I mean, we have 2055 Pembina is my first comparable, but that's a 1980s built, so it's 25 years older, but it's $18 a square foot. And once you start getting to the newer banks, like comparable 3, 4, the actual subject is comparable 6, the net lease in place. So comparable 6 is the actual subject, and it's at $32 a square foot. And once you start going down, comparable 14, as I went over, 2001 built is at $31 a square foot, so similar in size and in rent as our subject property.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Richard?
Nothing.
This was built specifically to be a bank, correct?
Looks like it, yep.
So it was built by the landlord for the bank.
That's what I'm assuming too.
Did you investigate the rental amount that they put down?
On my page
See what it
14.
all- See what it all included?
Yeah, the lease started 2007 after it was built for the Bank of Montreal. It's a 15-year lease. The latest step up was in 17 and they're receiving $32 net, so I don't have the actual lease to go through to go any more than what they've reported year after year.
Okay. On with your presentation,
Just,
Mr. Nisbet?
excuse me, Mr. Chair, may I just ask
Okay.
one simple question? Looking at the photo on top of page 2 of your ratio,
Yes.
what is that? Is that a different roll number at the back of the property? Way
No.
down here in the,
It's a railway track.
Yeah, that looks like, no, at the bottom of the page is another building, separate roll number.
oh, the purple line is not this total roll number?
Yeah, it's just like this is a roll number here, it goes back there, you'll see, we actually have a property, I think our next property is just like the building beside that, so you'll be able to see that roll number in the other picture.
Thank you,
Yeah.
that's fine.
What property were you talking about there, Richard?
You know what?
This right here, bottom of the page, you just need
Is that this?
Beside it?
yeah, beside it.
Yeah, that's the mall, right?
There's a building, and then there's a, you'll see there's another bank past that, and then a Burger King.
Okay, okay, I get it.
Okay. On with your presentation, Mr. Nisbet?
Thank you. The bank was built to suit, and as I mentioned earlier, this is one of those examples where the tenant wanted their leaseholds in the lease, and they were amortized in the lease. We have the numbers. Our calculation of the net effective is $23. Now, that particular lease at this point was, or at this time, was 11 years old. So the issue there is that the leaseholds were recovered over the first 10 years, but it was a ratchet action rent in that it doesn't go down, it just continues to rise on a base that was artificial to start with. So earlier I mentioned how you adjust these sites on the basis of knowing that you're amortizing your leaseholds in it and you're built to suit. And the two ways of doing it is if you have accurate information like 30 center I just handed out, first part of the term, easy to understand. This one being older is don't count, don't use it as an indicator of value. It's a business transaction. Now, so the person who wrote this kept the calculation, and I would tend to disagree with that simply because I think you just throw it out and look at the market. In our market, we have a number of leases, and the one you're gonna hear in a few minutes is next door is $28. And we know that that's a good lease. So I've changed this all to reflect $28. So do you want all of the numbers?
Sure, thank you.
Okay, so the rent per annum goes to $177,828. After our vacancy, $166,269. Non-recoverables are $83,13 at 5%.
83.
$83,13. Structural reserve stays the same. Shortfall, I did a recalculation, and to me there appears to be an error there. I think it should be $12.35 a foot. That comes out to $5,098. And I think there may have been some, I'm not sure what all was included in there, because the next page has some more costs, but anyway. So I've changed that, so my NOI is now 151,270.
Can you repeat that? Sorry,
151,270.
thank you.
You can see below that the TI was calculated out. And what's interesting is that when this was originally built, the rate of return was 9.85%, which is like the cap rate. So, but that's then, this is now, time's passed. The cap rate we're going to apply is consistent what we've seen on other banks applied at Board of Revision and accounting for a better location. You see, we're very hung up on location and the cap rates we've looked at. I started with one property that had a legal restriction, higher cap rate, then we went to a better location, drop downtown, or a poor location with an overstated rent, going back up. This is all the proper theory that's being applied, not one size fits all. So I think in this case, we are dealing with a part of town that is finally reaching its maturity, in that, when I say that is, Fort Richmond was basically developed sometime between, in the early 60s it started, and then it has a bit of a spurt around 1980. But it's been slow, but recently there's been far more development, and part of it is Waverly West, it's now feeding into it, and then some redevelopments on Pembina Highway related to the university with several large multifamily projects going up. So it has reached maturity, and so a more aggressive cap rate should be considered at 7.25%, and consistent with the other ones. So my new value is $2,086,483, 2,086,483, rounded to $2,086,000. And although I comment on last year versus this year, last year 1.7 million, and incidentally, that was based on a recommendation from the assessor of a rent at $24 and a city cap rate of 7.5%. So both of those we've changed and gone with numbers that result in a higher value. So I feel that that's, but I think it's a sign of an improving area. And if you can have bad areas, all you ever hear doom and gloom, bad area, this is an improving area. And that's our presentation. Thank you.
Questions, Jonathan?
I have no questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Richard?
Nothing, thank you.
Ken?
Sorry, what did you say you changed rent to?
So the
Rent to?
$28.
8? Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
That concludes the matter. Let's move on to 2799 Pembina Highway, amount of assessed value. When you are ready, Jonathan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are looking at roll number 0309298535. 2799 Pembina. This is just two buildings south of the last one we had. 2020 value of $3,711,000. This property has two buildings. This roll number has two buildings on it. We have a bank and a Burger King. The bank was built in 1996 and the restaurant was built in 1998. Same effective years. We have a gross floor area across both buildings of 7,754 and a leasable area of the same. If you look at page 2, you can see how the land and buildings have been divided up on this roll number. You can see at the top of the page we have the bank, and at the bottom of the page, or towards the south, we have the Burger King. You can see page 2 is a picture of the bank, and page 3 is a picture of the Burger King. So we have two income streams for this one. Page 5, bank is the bank, 4,505 square feet, $31.07, and we have the year built as 1996. You can see same bank parameters going down, and the overall capitalization rate on this one is 5.7%. And if you turn to page 6, we have the restaurant portion of the income stream. So the Burger King is at $3,249, $28 a square foot, $28.31. Again, I believe we agreed on rent for the restaurant, or very close. And then we have our standard restaurant parameters for 2020, which is 3% vacancy, 2% expenses, $750 shortfall, and a 6.35% capitalization rate, for a total value of $1,365,000. So again, our page 8 brings both of these together in a summary sheet. On page 8, you can see how they're split up. And you can see on page 7, I mean, the exact same bank comparables, very comparable to the last bank we had. And then I have put restaurant Burger King comparables ranging from $28 to $36 or $28 to $36. But again, I do not believe rent is a major issue on the Burger King. If we turn to my page 13, you can see the income and expense method that was sent in. Again, reported net rents for the TD Canada Trust at the bottom of the page there, $28 a square foot for the 2017 step up. Our model is generating a rent of $31 approximately, and then the Burger King's at $29.29 a square foot at the bottom of page 13 there. And I just have included our addenda. That is all my information on this one. Thank you.
Mr. Neufeld, questions?
Sorry, I was just reading something. Okay, I understand it. So again, the discussion we had earlier, two separate sections.
Yes.
Under 5,000 feet, cap rate that's lower.
Exactly the same as before, yes.
Yeah, if they were added together, the model might show a higher cap.
Yes, it could.
And it is one title.
I didn't check, but I assume it's one title.
And page 5 and 6 are all by the model, 5, 6, and 8 models?
Yes, all
Okay.
models.
Thank you.
Richard?
Nothing, thank you.
Kent?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
On with your presentation, Mr. Neufeld.
Thank you. So earlier, last property, I told you about the bank next door. So this one is a pure rent. There's nothing fancy in it. A tenant, in this case, they did their own work on the inside of their site, as did the Burger King. They did their own finishing on it, which is, those are business expenses, so they shouldn't be buried in the rent if you're doing an appraisal anyway. So we're using the actual income of $223,000, and that's on, versus the assessor. We're very close, they're at 231. We're using actuals are a bit lower. Our differences, we have a few differences. There's a remarkable one here, though. We are using a different vacancy, and to account for actual experiences. You'll note that I am not claiming a non-recoverable, because we made the decision this year that when we were objected very much to the non-recoverable attitude of the city assessor, that we're going to actuals. And if you look at the statement says they're recovering everything. Which is an interesting situation. I happen to know that they do incur additional expenses in the office side, which are about another 3%, but the statement says no non-recoverables. So be it. Yeah, if you've made up your mind on how you're going to pursue valuation, you've got to be consistent. So that's what we've done. Structural reserve, actually that arguably should be higher because the restaurant is a very poor piece of property when it comes to having structural reserves. It's basically the HVAC equipment and the roof. But if the tenant's responsible, then we don't have to worry about it. So that would be the landlord's attitude. The shortfall, you notice that I twice have changed to shortfall in this hearing, and this one in this case at 1080 a foot is accurate and applied. So that leaves us with an NOI of 201,189. Now, going to cap rate, there were two things that are slightly troublesome on this versus other sites. One is the amount of land. Now, under the current planning bylaw, it does meet the requirements for parking. The history of it on page 2 is there's the subject property with the red dot. The last property we spoke about is immediately north. Now behind the property is an apartment block. All of this land used to be on 2 parcels, and then they subdivided to produce space, and they developed the apartment behind it. In doing so, they took away land from the restaurant and the bank mostly, and we have 3 separate titles. Now, today, with common ownership, they can use the visitor parking in the apartment as spillover for Burger King if required. But if they were to sell, that arrangement ends. So that's a small concern, a problem to be dealt with in later, but it was one thing to think about. But the other thing I don't like about this is, I don't like restaurants as investments. Not that I've ridden several to the ground myself, but restaurants are poor investments. 90% of them fail the first year. That hasn't changed. Chain restaurants have a greater chance of survival. But the chain restaurants in the old days used to always have the franchisor on head lease. And if they liked the site, they could boot out the franchisee and put in a new one. These are corporate owned. Burger King hasn't been a consistent performer in the market. They've shut down lots of sites, including the site that was a few miles, across the street from this, virtually. Didn't like the old Pony Corral site, that was gone. They're simply not desirable investments, period. I would say that the bank is a good thing to have on, the restaurant's bad, but the cap rate should be a bit, obviously lower than 8.5, but not as low as 7.25. I was gonna say 7.5, mainly because restaurants are not good. So the value adjusted is $2,682,520. 2,682,520, which is rounded to 2,683,000, which is an increase over last year, and last year was a recommendation from the assessor at 2,500,000 based on a reduced rent and a cap of 6.5.
Jonathan?
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
Kent?
No question, Mr. Chair.
Richard?
Nothing, thank you.
And that will conclude the matters for today. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.